On today's episode of PoCommunity, we're talking to Alan Brown from Speedpro Coquitlam. We're going to talk about the sign industry, music, and more of his other passions. Check it out. What's up, everybody? I'm Mike Garboy, and this is another episode of PoCommunity shot at the Fountainhead Network here in beautiful Port Coquitlam. I'm here today with my guest, Alan Brown from Speedpro Coquitlam. How's it going, man?
Good, Mike. How are you?
Another day, another beautiful day here, you know? Another rainy, gloomy day. And
that's right, we're gray.
Yeah.
Right, we're all gray because I thought I'd blend in with the Vancouver skyline.
Yeah, and our ambiance, I guess. We got a lot of gray. And
yeah, you do, but it's nice. I like it.
Yeah.
It's actually very warm and inviting.
Yeah, I feel at home in here. You know, It's kind of street, but comfortable.
It's very comfortable. Yeah, it's a nice couch here. You can relax and just kind of take a load off. And you know, I got 2 drinks, which is very nice. Thank you, the Fountainhead Network. You can get coffee and water and beer, apparently. Yeah,
and beer. Maybe that's for after the podcast.
But that would be.
You can stay caffeinated and stay hydrated. It's usually when you get over caffeinated, you get a little bit underhydrated. So
you do
just balance it out.
I like that. That's right. Over caffeinated, stay hydrated.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
And that just balances out the badness, right?
Completely.
But tell us about Speedpro. What is it exactly?
So Speedpro in Coquitlam is we're a full service sign shop. So we can do anything related to a business's marketing when it comes to telling the world, you know, who they are, what they do. It's kind of like the who, what, where, when, and how of how a company can really message people. So it's signs, vehicle graphics, which would relate to a bunch of different items like car decaling and full wraps, custom decals, banner stands, trade show displays, flags. So anything that can be imaged, we can produce. So pretty much essential needs for pretty much all businesses. Exactly. Yeah. And so like this banner stand here, there's a good example of the kind of things that we produce.
That's awesome. So how did you get in that industry?
Well, that's an interesting story, actually. So I was actually working in IT at the time, and I had some very specific experience dealing with a kind of a boring subject, which is PDF workflow. And this is back in the early part of the 2000s. Okay. So this is actually moving large documents from point A to point B. And back in the day, anyone who's a designer would kind of remember that you had these big zip disks that you had to like bring in to get anything printed if it was a large file, right? If it was something like that, like a banner stand. So I knew how to move files over the internet. And so I was hired as a consultant actually to help a company that was going into what we call wide format printing wholesale. So that's anything that's 12 inches or wider that gets printed on a machine, right? So just imagine your desktop little HP printer, but really big, right? Yeah, so that's what that's like. So he hired me to help facilitate making a website that other sign companies could use to move their files around, right? They could upload it to the web. And once I started doing that, he said, hey, you know, the business is growing. We're going to need someone to kind of help inside the business in terms of like printing and managing the business. And because I was kind of in between jobs and consulting with him, I thought, okay, sure, let's learn about the print business. And so that's how I got started.
Well, that's awesome. I mean, like, I know a little bit about you. We've talked before. You're a musician as well. Right. You did some stand-up comedy.
That's right.
With this industry, like, obviously that takes some artistic background. Like both of those industries, you kind of have to be charismatic, artistic. Does that kind of intrigue you to get into this kind of work as well?
Yeah, it did. I think I was really attracted to, like you say, the designer artistic side of it in terms of, learning how to make logos, which I did for a long period of time. I also designed websites and all the artwork that went with that. So having a creative mind or creative bent was definitely an advantage, especially when you're dealing with customers and they're not sure, you know, how they want to take their company's logos or designs or an overall sort of theme, if you will. It's a different mindset, I think, when you're doing that.
Yeah.
And yeah, I've been able to tap into that creativity has been fun for me.
Yeah. How would you say like the industry's evolved since you've been in it?
Oh, wow. So when I started in the industry, a couple different things. First of all, the printing, there are very few pieces of equipment that could do that kind of printing back then, like the really big printing. And the machines were run by they printed an ink that was what we call true solvent. So back in the day when we were younger, like all the paints, remember when you were young and they painted the house? They're like, hey, everyone out, right? Because the paints were just like fumes.
Yeah.
So that's what it was like. It was like all these fumes in the building. So that's changed now. Everything's more economic. Well, everything's more eco-friendly in terms of less solvent. We use an HP latex technology, which is a water-based ink. So without getting technical, it's just there's no VOCs and there's no funky smell. Yeah. And it's better for the planet, right? Yeah. Excuse me. The other thing that changed was obviously the software that we used. You had to buy the software. Back then, an Illustrator and a Photoshop and all that was really super expensive, right? And I think that's when people were kind of moving software around. They're like, hey, do you have a copy of Illustrator? No, I don't have a copy of Illustrator. I never did anything like that, by the way.
Never.
I never did anything like that. No. Napster, what's Napster? So yeah, that's one of the big changes, was that the price of everything has also come down. Yeah. Like the capital cost of equipment has come down. So that's why there's a lot of sign shops and a lot of people that do print, because the cost to get into it is, you just need a space. Yeah. You need an outlet, right? I also, as my career in printing kind of evolved, I moved over to the technical side of things because I got very good at running the software that ran the printers, very technical software, and understanding kind of how the printers operated. So I started installing equipment and training people in sign shops like how to run the equipment. Yeah. And subsequently, I'd have a lot of people call me. They're saying, how do you run Illustrator, or how do you design a file in Illustrator for printing? So I would do a lot of consulting to help other sign shops, like how to do that. Probably been in, I would say, 75% of the shops in BC. Wow. Like either consulting or selling or fixing something, right? So a lot of people knew me because where I started, we were the only company that had that kind of equipment. So we were wholesaling to all the sign shops. Yeah. Right. So.
Yeah, I've talked to you before. I worked for a warehouse that supplied a bunch of that equipment, and even when I got into it, they were telling me about how basically the industry's evolved, like lighting especially too, in signs, how neons used to be massive and they were expensive to make and people wanted them, but so you got a lot of money, and then they pretty much have fallen off the face of the earth unless it's like custom special ordered stuff, but it's really not really used by many illuminated sign shops and stuff anymore, just because LED's cheaper, it's easier to use, it's easier to make, it's not I mean, from what I understand, neon's really expensive to fix, I
believe you're right. For sure it is.
Do you guys deal with any of the lighting stuff?
I don't myself. We have like partners that we deal with. So I have customers, and they want a sign, an outside sign, an external sign, something lit. Excuse me. And so we have partners that we tap into for that kind of thing. And really, that's a whole other ball of wax, right? Because you need, like, say, the electrical and certification and installation, and
there's a lot that goes into it.
A lot.
So when you got into it, was it Speedpro right away? Is that like?
It wasn't Speedpro right away. No. So there was someone that I had known in the industry for quite a while, who I had printed for at my first company, and we got to know each other because I was involved in the BC Sign Association. I was like a board member, and I was helping kind of grow the sign association. So we'd known each other for a long time, and he asked me for a coffee, and I said, okay, sure. And he said, hey, do you want to partner and create a company, because we have kind of synergistic sort of skill sets, right? And so we created DNA Signs and Graphics first. So his first name is Dario and mine is Alan, so it was DNA, Dario and Alan, right?
Clever.
Yeah, and so we made the whole DNA logo and everything. And the tagline, which I really liked, was genetically superior signs, right?
Yeah.
Sort of going with the whole DNA bit,
Yeah,
right? Yeah. And we were looking, so we did that. And then we were looking for a way to grow the business. And because I knew so many people in the industry, when I started looking for sign shops for sale, I found one. And I knew the owner. And so that's how we found the Speedpro, is the owner of this particular Speedpro in Coquitlam wanted to retire. He was having some health issues. So we negotiated some terms with him, and here we are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Many locations of Speedpro, I know that.
Yeah, Speedpro has just over 40 locations across the country, which is cool because, you know, we have something that we need in another city, or they do, then we can help each other.
Yeah.
So I think for our clients, they really appreciate that if they know that. And I think when they go looking and they find a company, again, with a trusted name, it's kind of like McDonald's, or, I mean, that's an extreme case, obviously, or, some other franchise that people can rely upon, that they can trust. And the other interesting thing to me is that every owner of our franchises, like, they're really, really interesting people, and they're really good people, and they all really care about helping other business owners.
Yeah.
Because, we're all entrepreneurs and business owners, so we understand the challenges that other business owners go through. So because of that, it also gives us, I mean, yeah, I'm selling you a sign, but there's a wider knowledge of what's happening behind that sign, behind what we do.
Yeah.
Which is interesting, because if we're talking to someone on the front lines and they're just getting a price from us, it's hard to impart, that sort of sentiment to them about, hey, once I make this sign for you, this is a sign, but there's so much else that'll go on behind the scenes in regards to this sign.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the branding. It's like kind of what you are, what people see you as. It's crucial, I think. Like, it's like I said, you're an essential service to all businesses. Every business needs logos, needs signs made for their business, for people to see where their business is, really. And I think, like, why you're saying, like, so many people are in your industry, and the people that are opening up these franchises are giving to one another. I think it goes back to that artistic value. I think, like, most people that are going to get involved in this industry have artistic, like, just an artistic background, and usually artists are very giving. That's what I've noticed, just dealing with all medias, different kinds of media. Everybody just wants to help each other out. It's not cutthroat like a lot of other industries.
Yeah.
It sounds like you're okay with giving business to another shop owner. That's not the traditional business sense to a lot of business people. It's like, no, I want all the business. I don't want to tell them about Speedpro Burnaby. Like, it's just, but working together, I think, is so much healthier, and just kind of supporting one another is just so much better for your industry, essentially.
I agree with you. I think it is. And because I've been in it so long, I know all the owners, a lot of the owners, in fact. So, yeah, and there's times when even partnering companies that I deal with, like, there was a situation where we were both bidding on something at the same time. But, why wouldn't we? If the opportunity comes along, that's kind of what happens, right? And so I take that very seriously as well. Like, if someone tells me something and that's not anything that I would turn around and ever use, in any kind of situation, negatively, I would say, because, again, it's all about reputation and karma and helping others. I really come at it from that perspective. Like, again, like you say, creative types, we're pretty helpful people. Yeah. I think we're a bit more, we're pretty tuned in emotionally to some degree as well. Yeah. And so,
So, let's get into that. Like, I mean, might as well talk about more, like, your personal loves, music. What kind of music? What are you into?
So, I am currently the lead singer for a band called The Limit. We're actually a Poco-based band. We practice very close to the Cat and Fiddle. Yeah. And so, as the lead vocalist, my passion has been music since I was really very young. It always kind of, there's certain people I understand, like, they did a study. There's certain people, when they hear music, it touches them on a different level. I mean, music touches everybody. It's amazing what it does for all of us. It takes you back in a vortex to another time immediately, right? Yeah. And I think just being connected to it, to me, it just always connected to me and spoke to me. And organically, I just got very involved in singing. I was just doing stuff around the house, and I started singing, and I had an opportunity. Actually, it was a it was a block party that one of my neighbors put on, and I might have had 1 or 2 drinks.
Yeah. Dozen?
Or 4, or 5, yes, that's right, or a dozen. It was a nice summer evening, and they put out like a big stage at the end of the street, and everyone was having a good time. They pulled their barbecues along, and actually it was a Chris Isaak song, Wicked Game.
Yeah.
And I said, oh, I want to sing this, and I popped up there and started singing it, and afterwards he said, okay, we want you to join the band. I was like, whoa, what? So that was really kind of cool just to start out that way.
Nice.
And then because I've always been a bit of a performer as well, I've always liked entertaining people since I was pretty young, actually. When I was in school, like I'm an only child, right? So
Same here.
Are you?
Yeah.
So like I was, my report cards always said Alan would do better in school if he didn't talk so much.
Pretty much, yeah,
right?
Yeah.
So
if he tried a bit harder,
right,
he has it, but he just doesn't try, and he talks too much. Yeah.
I mean, look, there's other human beings here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like I'm talking to my dog. I'm playing Monopoly with my dog.
Yeah.
Yeah. Subsequently, she did win a couple times. I'm not even really sure how that happened, Mike, to be honest. Oh, how'd you do that? And then the monkey won, those stuffy monkeys.
It's close to home, man.
Yeah. Okay. I'm glad to hear
Luckily,
that.
I had parents that let me have friends over all the time that I kind of made up for it. But yeah, there was always
funny.
that talking to yourself, that kind of mentality, and making friends with whatever was around you.
Exactly. Exactly the same thing. So I've been through probably about 3 or 4 different bands and iterations, and then I had to audition. This is the first band I actually had to audition for, and so that was really a different experience. A lot of pressure. I have no problem dealing with pressure. I kind of thrive under it.
Yeah.
So they took me in, and over the course of time singing with them, I started with them actually towards the end of 2019. Yeah. So we were just kind of getting going, and the pandemic happened, which kind of stunk. Yeah. But over the course of time, I was doing like vocal lessons and more training and things like that. And we did some private shows over the course of the last 2 years because, of course, everything's been shut down. Yeah. So we're just kind of getting going again, being able to sing, do things publicly. Yeah. But our band, The Limit, we can do, we come at it from the perspective of entertainment. Like, we want the crowd and the people to really remember us. Yeah. Right? And so we choose songs very strategically as well. A little bit different than a lot of other cover bands. There's a lot of bands out there. Yeah. Right? So we really try to stand out and find those certain songs. And then for me, because I'm the front man, again, connect with the audience and make sure they're having a good time.
Yeah. So you said like private shows like that, like house parties and stuff? Or
yeah, actually, we played one in December. Yeah. There's this huge house in Langley, right, kind of close to the airport. So they set us up in one of these great rooms, and I mean, it's always interesting when you do stuff like that because it's a totally different dynamic rather than being in a bar or a pub. But yeah, it was a lot of fun actually.
Nice. Yeah. So back to the business.
Yeah.
You want to show off a little bit of the stuff that you can do? I don't know if you want to just like show this sign off.
Yeah. So this sign here we made. So this is actually made out of Coroplast. Yeah. It's the plastic material. We make a lot of real estate signs out of that material. Yeah. In this case, we put an easel on it. So this is Hugh. There's Hugh here. A little stuffy here. But he's our mascot. These are our social media tag. Is that right? Tagline? They're called handles.
Yeah.
Handles.
Yeah,
is that
handles.
What you say?
Yeah, social media profiles. Yeah. I don't know what I'm like in the middle. I'm young and old.
Right. So you're just kind of like, what is it? Is it a tag? Is it a hash?
It's still a handle? It's still emoticon to me. It's not emoji.
Right?
But yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So that shows kind of where we can find you as well. I answered that question right there.
Yeah. So that's, these are the kinds of things that people come to us with all kinds of things. And a lot of times it's not just something simple. And so we're constantly solving problems for people. Like I have a designer that got a hold of me because there's a very specific color that somebody wants and no other print shop can hit it. Because by hit it, I mean no one else can print that color. Yeah. It's a very specific blue. And because I have...
Here, we'll pop it down now.
Yeah, let's put it back down. Yeah, it's going to slide down there. Anyways, I have a background in color management. So I understand Pantone colors and how to get certain colors right. So for branding, like a lot of people have a certain orange or a certain gray they want to hit. So we spend time making sure that our machine, our printer, will actually do that. It'll print those colors as close as possible. And if it doesn't, we do something very similar to your back wall, where we print a bunch of swatches that take that add and or delete certain levels of the 4 colors we print with, which are cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. Yeah. And based on doing that, we can customize colors for people.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Some of those printers are massive.
Oh yeah, they're big. Some of them there's some that are 10 meters wide.
Yeah, I remember walking in on my first day at the job I worked at, and they're like, "Yeah, this printer's $250,000." I'm like, it's like bigger than my car.
Yeah, it's huge. I know, it's crazy, right?
Yeah.
And you see the stuff draped from buildings or, it's bonkers. The technology literally from like 2005, I would say, till now, it's just done this curve, right?
Yeah.
The other thing is there's different kinds of printing, like those big machines, where they can print direct to a substrate. So they take the flat stock, like this Coroplast, and the ink goes right on it. Or you basically print on roll stock, which is what you're familiar with. It's kind of like having a big roll of paper, right? And that goes into the printer, and then the ink goes on that. It's a vinyl, right? It's an adhesive. And then you would take that, either mount it directly to the substrate, or you laminate it first, right? Put it like a protection film on it, and then you put it on there. That's what we do because we find it lasts longer. Yeah. It doesn't scratch. And you can't see through it. A lot of times you're driving down the street, you see a sign, especially during election season, you can see through it. And so that's why you can see through it, because the ink has been printed directly to it. Yeah. I got to tell you, it's very exciting stuff. Right?
I mean, I think it is, man.
I know. Well, I'm glad you do. But, it's one of those things, when you're talking about it, but someone who's watching the podcast may be like, what's this guy talking about?
I mean, it's interesting. And I mean, it's a business podcast. So like everybody that is, most of the people that are listening have they either have a small business or they know people that run small businesses. They're interested in starting small businesses. And this is like, it's key information. It's crucial information. One of the things I want to ask too, is there like a color you like working with on signs a lot? Because that's huge. I mean, if you're not thinking about what your sign looks like, if it's an outdoor sign, what it looks like at all times of the day. Right. Some people go in dark on their sign, and then at night
you can't see it.
You can't see it. So like, is there a color that you like? Obviously, people have their brands, and they're going to go with their branding colors. Yeah. Is there something you like working with because you just think it just like always pops, no matter the time of day?
Yeah, there's certain blues and reds. I mean, obviously, those are very common colors, but they do pop generally quite a bit. And a lot of people, they want to get artistic, which is fine, like you say. But if it's a dark background and there's a little bit of white text, it's hard to see it. Yeah. So a lot of times we'll make recommendations to make the background white. Plus, it's more inviting, generally speaking, when there's less for the brain to see and visualize, right? Like our brains process so much information. That whole KISS principle of keep it super simple, it really does come to fruition because your brain's looking at it. It's like, what does this say? Like, what's the point of it? Yeah. What's the point you're trying to get across with a sign? Like we've done a lot of bus benches over the years, which are the seats you see at bus stops. I remember there was a couple customers we had, and it was a small business guy, but he wanted to put so much onto the sign, and by the end of it, you couldn't read it. Yeah. Right? I mean, I understand it. This was the money that he had to put towards his advertising, but again, I always say less is more. Yeah. When it comes to that kind of thing, when it comes to design.
When you look at the biggest brands in the world, and how simple their logos are.
Right, Apple.
Right. Whether it comes clothing company like Nike, a check mark, Adidas, 3 lines. Like it's just like basic, where it works on everything. Whether it be like, this is for people branding in our industry is media. When it comes to your YouTube channels, all this, they all have different image sizes. You need your logo and your information that you want to promote to look good on every image size you possibly can put out there as your logo. Yeah. When people go super busy, obviously when you're taking a little icon, like a tiny little icon, you're not going to be able to see anything.
No, exactly.
So I guess you're giving a lot of that kind of information.
Completely. Yeah, a lot of times they're totally doing that. And again, I had someone who wanted this specific sign done, and I said, okay, I can do it, but I'm telling you, you know, this is what's probably going to happen when we do this color.
Yeah.
Just so you know. And people want what they want.
Yeah.
You know, I get it. So we just act as a guide. You're kind of like Gandalf, you know.
Yeah.
You go searching for the ring, you know. If you go this way, it'll be easier. If you go this way, it'll be more difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, you
do the best you can with what they want. It's pretty much.
Exactly. And the other thing I find, Mike, nowadays is that with everything that's been going on, you know, a lot of times it's the small things that matter to people. It's the stuff that you can control, that's within your purview to kind of control. And for some of us, you know, with everything that happened in the world, sometimes you feel a little helpless, and because of just where we've been over the last few years. So when someone says, I want this color, I want this design, you know, that's their idea, and that's their emoting or feeling through their, you know, through their sign or decals or car graphics or whatever it is. So, I mean, I understand it.
Yeah, it's a difficult balance because, you know, like you want to do the best absolute work you can do for them. But you also, like if they want something specifically and you're like, it's maybe not the greatest, you still want to do the best. You want your company to look good when you're done with it. So it's like, it's almost very challenging. And coming up with ways to make it work to the best of its capabilities is like an art in itself, really.
Oh, for sure it is. You know, it's a lot of back and forth, revisions and things like that. And, you know, sometimes, you know, because in the past when I've done comedy and things like that, so, you know, I'll bring that into the work and say, you know, no one's going to look at this sign, I got to tell you. You know, like, look at how much stuff is on this sign. Right? So it's... and then, you know, people have a bit of a laugh, and then they realize, oh, okay, let me have another look at it and see what's what. So, it's cool.
Okay, so let's vocally tell people where we can find you. Your website, your sign there. It has all your what were we talking about? Your handles. Right.
I've got my social media handles on there.
So all the people listening through audio will know as well.
So if they Googled Speedpro Coquitlam, they'd find us instantaneously. Yeah. And in terms of where we're located physically, like we are right behind the Hard Rock Casino in Coquitlam, right off the highway, so we're really centrally located. Nice. Yeah, and people communicate us, obviously, you know, email, which is coquitlam@speedpro.com. Yeah. Mine is Alan, ALAN @speedpro.com. They can certainly message us through Facebook. If they type in Speedpro Coquitlam as well.
Yeah, so Speedpro Coquitlam is pretty much the key. You look that up, you're going to find it on pretty much all social media platforms, right?
Exactly, Mike.
Yeah. I mean, and you guys, I guess your branding is great. I've looked at it. It looks great. I went to your website before this. It looks great. And I just love your personality. Like that's what I try to shine that on these podcasts. And obviously you have natural charisma that I think like every business leader I think should have essentially. It's a perfect just with this vibe and ambiance to like I don't know to what you do, and I can see there's passion in it. So that's my biggest thing is people putting passion into what they do. And artists I find have a really hard time because we know there's a reason it's called starving artist. Making money doing these artistic things that people love doing is not the easiest. So we're going to be winding up and winding down this podcast pretty quick. But I think COVID has really kind of made people bring their passions to the forefront again, whether it be the worst case scenario and losing their career or jobs through being laid off at the beginning of the pandemic. The amount of people I've met that have come in here for either the podcast or just starting a small business with what they're actually passionate about it's actually pretty staggering, and that's so healthy. So like for you as an artistic person, being able to have a professional business that's key and just essential to all business, but also still be able to bring out your like natural flair. Right. That's I think just it's a beautiful thing, right?
Well, that's nice, Mike. Thank you.
No problem, man.
I really enjoyed this.
Yeah, I enjoyed it too. I enjoyed talking to you. Stand-up comedy too. Like you did that a long time ago. You haven't done it in a while.
I haven't done it in a while.
That's a lot of guts.
Yeah, my kids were younger back then, and I put together a comedy troupe initially, which was called the Puddle Monkeys.
Nice.
Actually, we held some auditions, got a bunch of people. So between doing the stand-up, we did some sketch comedy. We wanted to do like a West Coast-based kind of sketch comedy.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you remember the CBC show, The Road to Avonlea.
Yeah.
That was way back in the day, obviously, but we did one called The Road to Abbotsford.
Nice. So that's cool, man. I appreciate that. It's creative.
Yeah, it's fun stuff.
But yeah, man, I appreciate you coming on.
Thank you for having me.
No problem, man. I come on again. I enjoy talking to you. If you ever want to bring out your creative side and bring it to the Fountain Network, we have plenty of avenues, whether it be green screen studio or do a video in here. We could do stuff in the podcast studio. If you're looking for a place for your band to play once events are a little bit more of a less of a headache, let's say, with COVID, this is an event space too. So that's something to think about. Yeah,
we'd love to do that. Yeah, you've got a beautiful, beautiful space here, and you and Aaron are really amazing giving people. I really got that from talking to Aaron.
Yeah.
The first time, and obviously you two work very synergistically with the community. You know, to be part of that. I shouldn't eat that sandwich. Sorry.
I mean, and the caffeine and the water.
That's right. It's like I've been sitting here. They're watching the video. They're people like, oh man, poor guy. Has anyone got some Tums?
Let's hope our producer, Mo, switch the camera as soon as you had that little gag reflex.
It's like, oh man, it's a good thing you're sitting. No, I'm just kidding.
But yeah, man, thank you, Alan.
Thank you.
Again, this has been Alan Brown from Speedpro Coquitlam. Thanks for joining us, man.
Thanks, Mike.
And thank you for joining us. Have a good one.